Hello, everybody out there in book world. Welcome to my channel. My name is Margaret Pinard. You're on BookTube, and we've got a party background because today is going to be a party to celebrate the end of our BlackAuthortuber Readathon. Very, very exciting. So I have some guests here today, some very special readers who joined me in championing BlackAuthortubers books. Of course, some of the AuthorTubers are friends. Some of them are looked at from afar with awe and wonder. But we loved dipping into those books today, all last month, and encourage you to take these reviews and maybe follow some of these AuthorTubers and pick up some of these books. So I'm going to jump into the why behind the readathon, but first I'm going to ask all of our panelists today, I almost said contestants, panelists today to give us a little details about their channel and what book or work they read for February.
I'll be a contestant if I win something.
Yeah, I thought about offering a prize. I was like scrambling. We'll see. We'll see by the end. We'll see.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Shannon. I write under the pen name ST Houston. I have my channel under ST Houston. And I publish content about writing and self-publishing, my self-publishing journey, although those videos are few and far in between as I concentrate on my writing. Although I did finish my work in progress this past week and got it off to readers. So I'm taking a little bit of a break. Yeah. It gave me time to work on the AuthorTube Writing Conference, which Margaret is my partner on. And so that's been great because we've been going through a lot of stuff, getting stuff. I've been working on the website. I can't wait to show you, Margaret. It's all behind the scenes, so no one else can see it, but it looks really great. So, but I've had some fun with that. I read 4 books for the BlackAuthortuber Readathon. So I don't know if they're in order, but Michael or Ronn, Honors Reserve. And then that was done with Martin Lejeune. And then Culinary Confessions, which I'm doing with Esther. And the other 2 are ebooks. Does she have it?
Yeah, Joanne has it.
Yeah. See, Culinary, you have the 2, Bethany? Oh, you should join us for our talk if you can. I don't know if you've got the time, but
I didn't actually read it yet. I was going to plug it as since I read dark fantasy for this readathon, this is up next.
Yes, it's light. It's definitely light. So See Them on the Rocks, that's by Morgan Lee, which I'm doing with Esther. And then I got the other one right here. And then the one I did with Margaret.
Yay!
Which was Will to Adam by Deidre Ann Anderson. So yeah, some awesome books. Was it all I was supposed to say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you're all good. You're all good. Ari, let's go ahead and go clockwise.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Ariadne McQuarrie. You can call me Ari. My pronouns are they, she, and I'm a little new here to the YouTube sphere. I've got about 4 published videos out, if I'm not mistaken. But primarily, I'm a poet by trade. I'm also an undergraduate student / Master of Fine Arts applicant. You can find me on YouTube here with my name, Ariadne McQuarrie. It should be spelled out on the screen. I'm sorry for how many vowels are in that last name. I apologize.
I love the vowels.
Vowels are great. A little bit. But yeah, so because I am a full-time student, I really had to find a balance of how many books I was able to read. So I did get 1 finished. I read The Art of Love by J.C. Carpenter, which is a poetry collection. And then I also I found at the local library a copy of Blood Like Fate by Lizelle Sambury. So I'm about halfway through. Didn't quite get it finished in time for this live stream, but I am still in the process of reading that and will continue reading it over spring break once I leave on Saturday. But yeah.
Nice. Break time ahead. That's always good news. Welcome.
Yeah. Welcome. Hi, I'm Esther Andujar. I am a Puerto Rican writer aspiring to be a hybrid author. February is not only such a short month, it is the month that I have a gazillion birthdays to attend. So my time was very limited. So I only read Culinary Confessions by Joanne Lambo or J.O. Lambo. She did kind of like a rebrand recently. So cute. That was just perfect because it's like light, it's short, it's cute, it's just what I needed for February.
Nice.
So that's what we're gonna talk. If I remember correctly, is Tuesday, March 7 in the afternoon. So that will be in my channel, which is just my name.
Is it 1 o'clock? Yeah, it's 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern.
Eastern, yeah.
And I think you have your link up on the spreadsheet, right?
No, I haven't scheduled a stream yet.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool beans. Beth Ann.
Hi, I'm Beth Ann. Oh, here we go. I always get like thrown off by where everything is. You'd think I would know how to do this since I've been on BookTube for like 3 years now. But anyway, yeah, I'm Beth Ann. Hello, everyone. I am a booktuber, unlike, I guess, everyone else on this stream. So I talk about the books that I've read. So you can find me under my name, Beth Ann Bruninga Socolar. In my non-online life, I'm a college professor, and this is my first year, and I'm drowning in work. So I only read one book this month, and I'm like so close to finishing it. So, and that was, I should say what that is. So that is Seed Among the Rocks by Morgan Lee, which I'm reading with Shannon, and we'll be talking about that soon, probably on my channel in a live stream. So more about that to come. And then next up, as I popped up earlier, is Culinary Confessions by Joanne Lambo, because everyone's been talking about it. And so I was like, that's going to be perfect after the dark fantasy that is Morgan Lee's book, which I'll talk about later. So, yeah.
Yes. Welcome everybody on the screen and welcome everybody off the screen. We got some nice people chiming in to say hello. And hit that like button, which I really appreciate. Jennifer here. We got some Authortubers. Emma can go to bed now. Thank you so much for showing your lovely face. I know it's very late where you are. So is Richard, although Richard routinely stays up past his bedtime. Yes, Eva. I will star Richard's comment. We'll think about it and come back later. Let's see. We've got some controversial opinions and yeah, I'm not sure what lemsip is. I think it's a British thing, so we'll just pass over that. I did pop the link for the spreadsheet into the chat. If anyone is not aware, this is our organizing document. It's very casual and easy to use. This has all the links for the books that we read, the authors, their YouTube channels, the links to buy, and if we are doing a video review, that is there too. So all in one convenient place, hopefully. Yes. And I was just going to come back to why I do host this readathon, just so everyone sort of knows what the point is and why, like, it's, you know, the screen doesn't look very melanated. So, like, where is this coming from, right? So I just wanted to say that I like to be the change I want to see in the world. And that includes reading books by marginalized audiences, because when you want to lift people up, when you want to amplify their voices, you got to start local. You got to start in your local political circles. So for me, that is Authortube and Booktube and my tiny, tiny channel. So whatever I can do, whoever I can pull in to read these books, it gets their work out to a wider audience and just exposes people to more perspectives and diverse views. And I think that can't help but better the world. So there's my little soapbox, and I hope, you know, people had fun while also getting pulled into this circle. So that's the why behind the readathon. Hope that's all fine and dandy with everybody. I heard some various genres that we covered this month from our readers on the screen. We had science fiction, we had romance. Oh, I didn't say what books I read. So I read Willed to Adam by Deidre Ann Anderson with Shannon, and we had our live chat a couple weeks ago. I read In His Corner by Alexandra Warren, which is my first Alexandra Warren, another great Black romance author. I really enjoyed that one. And the last one was super fast. I got an early copy, but I listened to Delicious Monsters by Lizelle Sambury. Super good. So we'll go over more of the content and how we liked these books and their strong selling points, etc. But those are the ones that I did. So all these different genres: poetry, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, romance. What do you write in the chat? I wanted to shout out any of the authors that were in the chat whose books we might have read. I don't think I've seen anybody.
Richard already put a link to his book in the chat.
He did.
Yeah.
Let's see. Bakery romance. Jasiva was asking me, I have your name. I'm not a fae. And I'm not sure if you're asking for Beth Ann's, but I said everyone on the screen is in the description. So if you're looking for like, how do you spell Bruninga socolar? There we go. Yes. Anything else? We've got trolls. We've got names. Ari's name might be appropriated for a story. I like it. Yeah. Oh boy. I'm not scrolling fast enough through the chat. I'm filling it in. Oh boy. Okay. There's
a
one.
lot of highs. Yeah, there's a lot of highs.
And in case Tiffany came, I was going to show her. We just had a conversation about lilacs, and I realized I had a lilac.
Oh, nice.
Same page today. Welcome. Leslie, Nia, people are here. Yay. Okay. So since I'm slow and can't, there it is, down to the bottom. Gonna stick to my outline, which is I'm gonna use some framing from a Lulu blog post. If you're not familiar with Lulu, it's a self-publishing company, and they have a blog because everyone has a blog. But they did a post last year for Black History Month that had some really great summarized points. The poster was named Naveen, and so I just thought I'd use this as our jumping off point for like reading for Black History Month and the microcosm that is the BlackAuthortuber Readathon. So the month of February, it's a chance to celebrate Black achievement, and it serves as a reminder of how widespread systemic racism still is. There are lots of ways you can get involved. You can educate yourself on Black history, nonfiction. Give me a thumbs up if there's any nonfiction fans in the house. Shop from Black-owned businesses. Yes. Start discussions with your family and friends and more. So, yes, it's not just a readathon. It's everywhere. You can do all the things. So let's start with the first question to my readers on the screen. I don't want to assume the knowledge of everyone's backstory and like life experiences, but I think looking at the screen, none of us are Black authortubers. So we're all people who are reading books outside our experiences. What draws you to want to read Black books and highlight Black writers? And I'll try to just...
Do you want just anyone to go?
Yeah, anyone can go. Just give us a sign.
Esther, you look like you want to say something.
I can go. You guys know I don't have a problem with starting. So specifically for the readathon, I wanted to kind of like help promote Joanne's story because she's working on another book that is within the same like setting. So I wanted to kind of like highlight that she already has a book and kind of like hype up her other book that she's been very diligently working. As an overall, I'm a marginalized author. I'm Puerto Rican, born and raised. So I tend to try to support POC authors more often, whether it's just mentioning them, definitely with my money. Like I try to have a lot of books by POC authors. Um, so they can keep publishing because we know publishing is not the best. It's not friendly to POC authors. So as a fellow person of color and writer and author, the least I could do is help enable their career. Because just I will hope so. I don't do it because I wanted like a pay like a back to me. But I will hope people will be like, oh, let me support this POC author. Um, and I do that with every marginalized group. Is just whether it's person of color, queer community, divergent community, the disabled community. Like I'm trying to put my money into how the world actually looks like in the books that I want to read and want to have on my shelf. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Esther.
I can go next if you guys are good.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, I don't think I don't in my daily life pay attention to what the author, if they're even male or female. I don't pay attention to the author. I'm looking for books because I have a marketing mindset. All the books I pick out are all because I'm looking and researching my genre. So it's never crosses my mind. So an event like this is a good time to say, hey, wait, we need to take a moment. We need to stop. We need to make this right. Because I do come from, my family's mixed. So I want to make sure that my boys have something that they can look at that has part of their ancestors that they could look at, or history, or whatever the book may be about, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, whatever it is. So I want them to know about their themselves, their different parts of their cultures, whatever, that I can't always provide because I don't have that experience to provide them. So
Nice. Teaching the next generation. Very good. Anyone else?
Yeah, I can jump in. So definitely feeling a lot of sympathy with things that have already been said, and with the intro that you gave, Margaret, for why you do this month. But partly for me, thinking about, so all of those things are true, but then going off of what Shannon just said, with Black friends and family and Black students, because my college has a very diverse student body. And it's, I want people to feel at home with my bookshelves is definitely part of it, that I want people to walk into my office or walk into my living room and see that it's not just white literature and white history that's represented. So I want that to be just sort of a quietly visible part of who I am as a reader. And that's definitely a place where, I'm white and raised in the US. And so my reading history going back 30 years at this point leans very heavily towards white authors and the white perspective. And so, I need to amp that up since it is a goal of mine. And this readathon is a great way to do that. So.
Excellent.
I do believe I am next. Yeah, so I guess first and foremost why I wanted to do this challenge specifically was, again, I am relatively new to the BookTube and the AuthorTube community, and I felt like this was a very good and just a very good way to connect with fellow AuthorTubers and fellow BookTubers in a way that was also beneficial and uplifting to the community as a whole. As for why I want to highlight Black authors in general, as a trans person, it is very frustrating and very heartening to occupy a vacant space in terms of representation. And I feel like a lot of that rings true throughout different marginalized communities. And we see this in traditional publishing. We see this for self-publishing in terms of algorithms and how we can market our work if we're publishing ourselves. They are very, very, very much oriented towards straight, white, cisgender, able-bodied people of wealthy to middle-class backgrounds. And I don't want this to be the narrative anymore. And it shouldn't have been the narrative to begin with. And I feel like being able to do my part with the position of privilege I have as a white person and just someone with a platform is being able to try and be the change where I can. And so I feel like things like this is where I can really help and where I can really be of benefit without stepping over somebody in my journey towards representation.
Awesome. Excuse me. That sounds so good. Yay. Okay. Feel good part of the program is underway. Let's see. So there's more from this blog post that I thought was interesting. Let me just throw it in here for some seasoning of the mix here. So, why to read Black authors was the title of the post. This is why it caught my eye, because I feel like, from my background, we have the sort of duty to listen and witness and all those things, but maybe we don't know why. We just think we're supposed to. And so, like, diving into that why and like why it's personal rather than just societal pressure is important. So, this is the quote from Naveen. Reading books by Black writers is important in helping us better understand the world around us as well as what it means to be Black. We learn by understanding the richness of human experience and by exposing ourselves to new perspectives. Stories that help break down barriers of inequality, stereotype, and bias. When we don't tell the stories that reflect the diverse identities within our society and omit these experiences, we erase these identities and silence so many voices. And so that's why I thought that empathy through reading and talking about experiences is really kind of what I got into this writing thing for. So, like, making it a part of the channel was a good way to do that for me. So I realized I didn't give a part in my outline of questions where people could talk about the books that they read. But Beth Ann mentioned talking about the book that she read. So my next question is, have you read much Black literature before? Is there a before and after a moment when you turned your attention more pointedly to marginalized authors' work? What changed? What changed about the contents of the books you sought out? So with that sort of like backstory, watershed moment, and the book you chose, maybe give us a little, I don't know, 500-word essay on that. Beth Ann.
And go. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't point to a single point. It's definitely been a process of growth over the last, certainly over the last decade in particular, of just reaching more towards writers that don't necessarily share my experience. And partly for learning, partly for enjoyment. And then something that's been really wonderful is that it is getting easier to find writers with a diversity of experience. And my first foray into writers from books that were about, I should say, about marginalized characters was with queer literature in middle school and high school, like late 90s, early 2000s. And a lot of it was not written by queer folks. And so it had a very different feel to it than the literature that's coming out now. And so it's been really interesting to sort of see that shift, although maybe part of it is moving from like middle grade and YA up to adult literature. But the field is changing, which is really nice, because I find myself more drawn to stories about joy and stories about empowerment. And it feels like the stories that I had access to when I was growing up weren't. They were much more just about like pain, which is important to learn about, certainly from a historical perspective. Well, it should not even historical, history is happening all the time, right? But from an awareness perspective, but then also just being able to have literature that's a celebration of people's lives, I think is really wonderful. And so that's what I've been reaching to more lately. And of course, I'm saying that having just read dark fantasy where horrible things happen to the characters all the time, and it was great. But in general, I reach more towards, stories that have really strong characters that really come into their own and sort of come into their power and feel a strong sense of identity and sort of comfort in their identity. I've been reaching more towards those and trying to find those. I'm not even sure if I answered your question, but
I think you got most of it. Yeah. A+ answer on your 500-word essay.
Cool.
That's how we grade here. So
yeah, awesome. That's how I grade. It's fine.
Yes. So yeah, and I'll just add to that. One of the later points that fits in here now is that a lot of times there's like waves of progress and then backlash, and then another wave and then a backlash. And so one of the ways we move forward is making sure that the progress is bigger, right? One of the sort of waves of progress is the getting down to a more detailed level, a more granular level, and saying it's not just books written by Black people, it's books about more than Black pain, because that has somehow found a niche. But publishing is only saying yes to those exact type of story, and that's like like fetishizing, right? So make sure you're giving
Mhm.
a whole picture, make sure you're giving voice to all experiences, which is exactly what you're talking about. So the cozy mystery, the dark fantasy, like the sci-fi action hero, all the good stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, and also stories that, are just written by Black people, but may not center the experience of being Black. And that's true. I'm gonna pitch Morgan's book like as much as I can.
I was going to say is a very good example.
That's Morgan's book. Yeah, because it's a fantasy book. You could read the whole thing and not have any idea what race Morgan is and come out of it not knowing. It's not a central part. And just being able to, have just regular books written by regular people, right? Like there doesn't necessarily have to be a message, but to have the literature move in that direction where you can be a Black author writing fantasy, and sort of not be expected, or not only get a publishing deal or something if you're centering, sort of the more, the trauma or, yeah.
Yeah, I feel that way when I read Culinary Confessions because
Mhm.
there is some description. You kind of like get a sense of how they look like, but it's not about the experience of being Black. It's just about her experience about her bakery and just the goodness of that and her aspirations and things she deals with that are very universal to your human experience, regardless of your skin color. So that's one of the things that I adore about the book, Culinary Confessions, because it's a joyful book that just happens to have a Black protagonist. And that's what I try to reach out, like try to buy books that way. I do tend to gravitate more for Hispanic authors, and I'm trying to add more Afro Latine authors in my books because that's something that's part of their identity that it's not talked about a lot. It's just like either you're Hispanic or you're Black, and a lot of them is like they're both.
Hmm.
And I do want to kind of like read about that, whether it's about the experience of being Hispanic and Black or just a joyful, fun story that just happens to have a Black character. Um, that's what I tried to do. And I think my switch was when I decided to take writing seriously and have a career. And I'm like, if I want anyone ever to support me, I should do the same thing for other people, regardless of their identity. I just try to do that more for people who I understand the struggles of being seen in such a white society.
Yeah.
So, and I say it as a very white passing Puerto Rican. So,
Yeah. Makes sense. Being a role model. Yep.
Yeah. I would say so. I've been reading all my life, as soon as I could actually make out words in English. But it wasn't up until I was like 14 or 15 that I actually diverged from the Warrior Cat series, if anyone is familiar. Um, I basically, because there's so many books in that series, I pretty much stayed reading that same series for most all of my childhood. But the one turning point for me in terms of broadening out to other forms of literature in general, but also more specifically broadening out to Black literature, of course, was written by a white person, but about a Black woman. But it is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Oop, I gotta figure out how the camera's set up. But this book was just so poignant in the way that it tells this tale. This woman was robbed of her own cells by the medical industry without her knowledge and without her consent and without her family's knowledge and consent. And having this story be an introduction for me was a game changer because seeing this sort of injustice happen in the pretty much the first book I had ever encountered on anything relating to the subject was very powerful for me. But in a more recent sense, here in my undergraduate, I take a bunch of classes, but two of the classes I took my freshman year, there was a race and theater class, which had to do a lot with plays written by playwrights of color. And then I took a race and media class, which was not, it was more broad. It wasn't specifically focused on literature, but it was actually how I got introduced to poetry by people of color. And so two of my textbooks in this class were actually the Fortune for Your Disaster by Hanifa Duro-Keeb, which I recommended for the Missy Elliott Reading Challenge, if anybody's participating in that. Love this book. And Appalachian Elegy by Bell Hooks. So those were my real main introductions to Black literature. I think in terms of what's changed about the contents of the books that I've sought out, I, of course, read a lot of young adult fantasy fiction about cats. But as I've broadened my horizons, especially as someone who reads from the perspective of I am a poet first and foremost, I've read a lot of poetry and I've read a lot of creative nonfiction and I've read a lot of more prose heavy fiction, but most specifically a lot of poetry.
Nice. And you picked a poetry book for this, which is appropriate. Yeah.
As they were talking, I was thinking, oh, that's why they chose poetry.
Yeah.
But so I don't think I've ever I don't think there's gonna any one point where yeah, I'm gonna read books by Black authors. I don't think there was ever that point where I thought that. I know I read a lot. I mean, the one that's always been near and dear to my heart, which probably everyone knows, is that one.
Why
So
things, yeah.
yeah. So, but as it's been a good decade since I've read that, so I couldn't tell you everything that's in it anymore. But I do know the takeaway message. It was sad for me. That's what I remember was sad. So, like what Beth Ann and Esther talk about, I'm ready to read more. I think fantasy's always been my subject, anyways. I like reading fantasy. I always have. That's the first story I wrote was fantasy. So yeah, I want to get into more fantasy. So like Morgan's books are perfect for me. It's fantasy, and I mean it's awesome. So I think I answered your question.
Yeah. Let's see. Read much Blacklit before. Let's see. I've got genre questions. So if you stepped out of your genre for this, or whether you stayed in, Ariadne stayed in. Apparently, we've heard that. I can go first for this one, which is, so my go-to genre is historical fiction, and I don't know, until Nia puts out a book, I don't have a BlackAuthortuber that is a historical fiction writer. So Nia, anytime. So I was looking at friends' books, looking at what I've read. I picked 2 romance and 1 horror. So the romance definitely in my bailiwick, like romance all day long, right, Esther? But the horror out of my comfort zone, right? And that's because I've read Blood Like Magic, which is Lizelle's first book, and I knew the writing is there. That will help me forward if I'm a little scaredy cat about some of the other stuff. And we were talking a bit about what kind of horror is it, and what makes you not be able to finish a book. And so I was able to finish Lizelle's book, Delicious Monsters, because I'll put the link in the description to my video yesterday when I had no voice and I was sneezing all over the place. But the better way to say it was the writing was so specific and so anchored in specific experiences. It made it very easy to understand the tension and the creepiness and the vibes of danger lurking, right? And so that's horror, but not body horror. There was some body horror, but I could just sort of zone out during that and be like, okay, it's a thing. We're over it. We're done. So I really liked both the ones that were in my genre, the romance we read, and the horror. So I won on both counts. But how about you guys? Whoever wants to jump in.
I stay in one of the genres that I read. I love romance. I love contemporary romance. And I read almost anything under the fantasy umbrella. But I stay again. It was February. I'm like, I just want something cute.
Yeah.
So I stay within my lane. And I'm not. As much as I would like to read other genres, I know myself, and I'm like, oh, I know I'm not gonna be able to even pass the first chapter.
Mm.
Like I joke with Laura Nettles, and I'm like, I will buy your books, but they're just gonna be like for just to have them there to look pretty. That's it. I'll love you, friend. I will give you my money, but I'm not gonna read it because I know it's gonna be so creepy. I wouldn't be able to sleep. So probably that's what I will do with LaSalle Delicious Monsters because it's just a beautiful cover. It's creepy, but it's just gonna be for show because I know I'm not good for horror. So I I don't gravitate much outside of my comfort genres. And also Black authors have so many wonderful stories and they're so interesting fantasy worlds that they are building. It's like I don't need like I specifically don't feel the need to expand because I just want to live in all the worlds that they have built that they're very different from what we grew up reading. So
Wow, you're taking me back to like self-development world when we were talking about personality types, people that like to dive deep and like see all the differences and people that like to sample all the variety. And so you're like diving deep in the genre. I like it. I like it.
yeah.
It's good too. Genre, in or out?
I guess I haven't commented specifically about that. I was in my comfort zone, which is definitely fantasy. Hello, Morgan. Your book is in my comfort zone, which feels weird to say because it's dark. I'm gonna keep saying that because there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of bad things that happen, but it's great. Yeah, so fantasy, my comfort zone. Since this takes place during the semester for me, I knew I needed to have something that would be like, even if I was really tired at the end of the day, I knew I'd be able to read a chapter because it was gonna, scratch that reading itch. So
Nice.
So I read 4 books. One was fantasy, which is my main genre. One was romance, which I'm dabbling in writing romance and fantasy, and sci-fi, which I also like. So the only one that was kind of outside of that was that was also romance. So we had 2 romances because the BDSM novel was actually romance too.
Right.
So yeah, so I guess they're all within my wheelhouse.
Tiny bit outside my comfort zone. That was the first time I'd read about BDSM stuff, but it was very light. So I was like, this is a good introduction. Excellent. Thank you. Dieter did a great job. So
Yeah, I definitely didn't stray too far with poetry. That was something I wanted to give voice to any poets that were out there. That being said, when I read Blood Like Fate by Lizelle Sambury, I'm vaguely distantly connected to fantasy ? But it's been a good long while since I've actually sat down and read a fantasy novel. So this was a really nice break from the reality of what my normal reading stack is. And so I'm not quite finished with it yet. Like I said, I will get finished with it. But yeah.
nice. So I just excuse me, I just put a link for the Missy Elliott challenge. Ariadne put a book on that. I put a whole bunch of books on that. I didn't get to all of them. I never get to all the prompts on the readathons anymore. It's fine. I'm okay with it. I've come to terms. Yeah, Fortune for Your Disaster. Awesome. And the link to Storygraph is in the chat.
I'll say Peter Okonkwo publishes poetry. I don't know if you know his channel, Ariadne.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm subscribed to him.
Yay. And I was also looking up other readathons. So besides Missy Elliott, there's also a BlackAuthon run by Jesse on Booktube, the huge channel, huge participation. And for the culture, there's all these different ones. And I found a Booktube channel that I just subscribed to. She just did her wrap up and covered them all and what she read for them. So Courtney at Tangible Reads. I'm just popping her video in case anyone wants like a nice slice of all the readathons besides this one. All right. So next question I have: a favorite Black classic and or a favorite recent discovery. So I think one of those like we get tired of hearing this from white people is, oh, I love this one Black classic that everyone had to read in high school. And you're like, can you get out more? Can you read some modern people? Can you, try something new instead of like clinging to the one thing that's okay, right? So if you have a favorite classic, feel free to drop that. But also, like, what's new that you read this year, last year, like recently? And I'll start off with the two that I have in my. Actually, I have a whole bunch. Okay, I'll start off with the two new ones. So the two that I read this month and last month, January and February, so super recent, was How the Word Is Passed by Clint Smith. So he talked about Virginia in not so nice terms. That was his first visit. Basically, it's a nonfiction about places in the U.S. and abroad that are grappling with the legacy of slavery and how America examines its own relationship with the aftermath. And it was super interesting. Like New York City, Louisiana, North Carolina. He goes to off the coast of Ghana, and like just really has a fantastic writing style. I've read his poetry book, so I went from his poetry to this, and it was just like, what cannot he do? So Clint Smith. And then also Wandering in Strange Lands by Morgan Jerkin, who I had not read before. I have a fiction book of hers, but the nonfiction was her investigating where she has family connections and places that are full of unique Black cultures in the United States. And so she went to some of the same places. She also sort of had a few intersectional things that I found interesting. Esther was talking about Afro-Latine, and I was really interested to learn a lot of stuff I didn't know about African and Indigenous history and how they're mixed, and how she found out about some of her family history or possible family history in Oklahoma. And so I was like, wow, that's just so cool. So those are my new picks, and I'll come back to my older ones. But someone else, feel free to go ahead.
So go, Eric.
So actually, first and foremost, funny you should mention Clint Smith. He has a new poetry collection coming out this month called Above Ground. And I know that because the literary magazine I worked for received an art copy and I ended up with it.
Oh my God.
So it is phenomenal. I can't spoil too much, but I'm loving it so far. I'm about to finish up with it. I've got like 7 or 8 pages left. I'm actually finishing it tomorrow. So I can leave a review, but keep an eye out for that. Actually, it comes out this month, March of 2023. It's March?
Yeah, it's March.
I'm losing track of reality. Anyway, I limited myself to 4 recommendations, and I will like rap God these through. But the first one is a series of plays. It's Dutchman and the Slave. There's 2 different plays by Leroy Jones. This was a set of plays that I studied for the race and theater class I took. Just very phenomenal plays. This one is a little unique in terms of its genre, but it is The Intersectional Environmentalist by Leah Thomas. And this is actually, my minor is in environmental studies. And so this book talks about navigating intersectionality within environmental justice and identity within environmental spaces. So for example, me as a trans white person has some shared experiences with a trans Black person in environmental spaces, but we are also going to have differing experiences because of our race, although we have similar identities because of our transness. So this is a really, really, really good topic if you ever want to dive into environmental literature, environmental justice, anything like that.
That's on my wish list, and I know several booktube channels that have read and glowing reviews about that. So yeah.
Yes, I love it to death. The other one I have, it's a poetry collection called The New Black by Evie Shockley. She actually came and spoke to my school, and so this is a signed copy of it. But it's got some really good content in here. You can see a little bit of just how much I've dog-eared in
Turned out
this book
corners.
to
Yay!
take
We're
notes
on our
on.
team.
And then the final one is a piece of Black LGBTQ plus creative nonfiction called All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. I love LGBTQ creative nonfiction. There is not enough of it out there quite yet. I'm working on it, I promise. But this is a very, very strong addition if you ever want to get into the subject.
Nice. And needs extra championing because of the banning movement. So
Yeah. Yeah, that book is excellent. And he just announced a new collaborative project with, I'm totally blanking on her name. The woman who wrote You Should See Me in a Crown. The like queer what?
Leah Johnson?
Yes.
Leanne Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah. So she and George M. Johnson announced on Twitter they're doing a collaborative project that just got bought, like 7-figure publishing deal. So yay.
Yay. More to come.
Yeah. Also poetry, Ari, since you're here, I assume you've read Ross Gay, any of his work? Yeah. So Catalog of Unabashed Gratitude was my introduction to Ross Gay recently, and just like blew me away. I mean, like soul joy. I just loved that book so much. And then Alexis Pauline Gums is definitely like a treasure of a person. She writes both poetry and creative nonfiction, and I think regular nonfiction. I think essays as well, and like edits collections. But what I've read is poetry and creative nonfiction, and again, just like a visionary thinker and beautiful writer. So also a relatively new discovery for me. And then I have to talk about fantasy because that's a lot of what I read. But Andrea Hairston is like, I'm shocked that she doesn't get talked about on BookTube more, because she writes really creative fantasy. She's a theater professor and wrote Master of Poisons was the first book of hers that I read, which is just a beautiful blend of like queer characters, cultures that are like steeped in theatricality, where like theater and performance is just like a huge like cultural touchstone. And then magic and fantasy. There's symbolism with bees, which I'm a biology professor whose research area is bees. And so I was just like, it was like the most amazing thing ever. So Andrea Hairston, definitely recommend. And then recently I read, fairly recently, a few months ago, Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart, which is Jamaican-inspired fantasy with really strong female protagonists. So really enjoyed that as well. So those are some of my modern recent picks.
I will have to go back. Just even made the request, hint, hint, of putting the links to all these recommendations. I will put that in the description after I have a day for YouTube to process this. But yeah, your wish is my command.
So this is the question that I technically don't have an answer, partially because my upbringing on reading like school, it's 100% different from the US, because I live in Puerto Rico. What we read is very, very different. And I know some of the books that I read in Spanish are by Black Puerto Rican authors. It's just I wouldn't be able to recommend it to an English viewership because they're not translated in English. And they're very old, and they're very much about the experience of slaves in Puerto Rico, and all the sugar cane plantation things, which is such a downer to read. Like, just horrible. It's horrible to read. Yes.
Have you read Dalma Llanos Figueroa's book? Because that's in English. It's available. A Woman of Endurance.
I don't think
Everyone
I
is
have
like
read
shouting
it.
that out. So
Yeah, I haven't read it. I know about her, but I haven't read her books. But I'm searching for that Black author that I can consider a favorite, especially if they land on my auto buy list. That I will be like screaming their names everywhere. But yeah, it's just it does where I land because I don't have the same reading background.
So my first Authortuber book I read was Shattered by Aphrodite Lee, who's in the chat now.
In the chat.
Yes.
Where'd she go? There she is. Hey, everybody.
So it's not fantasy, which is usually my wheelhouse, but this is when I was just being introduced to the AuthorTube community, and I thought, well, I'm going to try a book, and she was like one of the first people I talked to besides Ben and Barrett. So Ben didn't have his book out yet. Barrett doesn't have a book out, so it just made sense. I read hers. So I like Shattered. I keep bugging her for book 2 because it's not a done series, but she's keeping me in suspense. But Lizelle Stanberry, I mean, I love that. It was fantasy. It's more contemporary, which I like, more historical fantasy. So, but the question, when you put this question out, you challenged me to go look up romance fantasy authors who are black romance fantasy authors. And many of the covers I recognized, and I clicked on them and I was like, oh, all of them are traditionally published, which means they're not in Kindle Unlimited, which is how I consume my books right now, is Kindle Unlimited, or but I only buy Authortuber books. I don't buy any other buddies' books. So I'm like, okay, I don't have access to this without paying, 10, 12, because their ebook even is like the cost of a paperback used to be. So I give myself $12 to $15 a month to spend on 3 books is what I usually get with that amount. I blow all that one book if I got it from a traditionally published author. So I'm telling myself, okay, I need to choose just 1 month where I buy that, or buy 1 book. So, but the money that has kept me from buying it before.
Gotcha. Interesting. See, market research. Shannon's here on her brand. On brand. Oh, interesting stuff. Yeah. Did everybody go? Yes. So I have backlist books. The backlist books are a little bit maybe easier for people. So Fastest Way to Fall is reviewed on my channel. Denise Williams, Black romance, excellent, hilarious, but also like heartrending because it's women confronting like inner wounds, which is great. Transcending Kingdom, also Backlist by Jassi, but like epic. I can still remember listening to it and where I was walking because it was making me think about everything in my surroundings, like just experiences I hadn't been aware of and connecting them in a way that felt very relatable. So it was like meeting in the middle. It was just brilliant. And my favorite Black classic was the one that I actually read for BookTube, which is Their Eyes Were Watching God. So no, this is probably like the stereotypical white person's read a Black classic. Sorry, Bree. But I'm glad I got around to reading it for my BookTube channel, and we'll probably need to reread it soon. But it was lovely. It's written in the 1930s by Zora Neale Hurston, but just feels still so alive and vivid and like an awakening moment that anyone today could relate to. So just loved her writing. We have some kitty sighted comments. So Pookie.
This is Pookie. She did not read any Black literature during Black History Month.
And this is cat sitting? This is not yours, right?
This is mine.
This is okay. I thought you were saying the name was someone else's name.
Oh, we adopted 11-year-old cats whose previous owner died.
Oh,
yeah. So through a friend from work, it was her aunt who died, and she was really concerned about 11-year-old cats going to the shelter. So they came with their names. I'm not going to try to change the names for 11-year-olds. So their names are Pookie and Pooh Bear. Which are cute. They're not what I would have chosen, but they're cute.
Are they like reference to How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days? I think that's the movie with the nickname, or was it Rent? Or
They're both nicknames in Rent. That's what I was pointing out. So
yeah, because Pookie was from both Rent and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, but Pooh Bear was pretty much, if I remember, from Rent. I haven't watched those movies in a while, so I'm like, are they a reference for that?
Maybe.
The song I think says Honey Bear. But anyway.
Yeah.
Haven't seen that in a while, so.
Okay. Musical sidetrack over. All right. So, how to support Black authors in general, read books by Black authors, share books written by Black authors. Check. That's what we're doing today. Loving it. And follow Black writers on social media. That's the last little nugget I'm taking from that blog post. So, I asked my readers to give us a single. I get two because I'm the host, but give us a Black writer we should all follow on a specific platform, whichever platform, and why.
Lizelle Samberry on Instagram because she knows how to use it to market herself.
Nice. I like her videos.
I will say author JC Carpenter on her YouTube channel. Her content is fantastic. Plus, she writes both fiction and poetry.
Banging. Yep.
Not an Authortuber, but I would say Alexis Pauline Gums, I mentioned earlier, for poetry and creative nonfiction on Instagram, because she just posts very like soulful, thoughtful content, as well as promotional stuff. It's a lovely account.
Nice.
My personal favorite is Vixen of Fiction, so go follow her.
On YouTube and everywhere. Yes, everywhere.
I should have said Joanne. She just rebranded her Instagram and it's looking awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And again, since I'm the host, I have the power to put it in here. But I have the two. One is Bree at Locked Booktition. She's one of the first people I followed on BookTube. She is into plants. You get a lot of plant content. She is an amazing therapist. You get really thoughtful conversations with the people she hosts on her channel. And she runs a book club every month about Black classics. I think it may be over now. It may have been last year. Sorry, I'm getting stuffed up. But yeah, those are the three things that are jumping out at me about Bree's channel right now. She's amazing. And then Didi, who I didn't know her name. I just know her as Brown Girl Reading. She comes by my channel every once in a while and puts in an opinion. She's a huge channel. She's in France and she's got like great content. So I will occasionally indulge and watch her like trying out fountain pens. That's one of those like lives of the rich and famous type kind of things like I wish I could do. But also bookish content, stationary planners, like all that sort of like fun stuff. But she's great. She comes by and says hello, which is appreciated. But yeah, so yeah, feel free. People in the chat are popping in as well. We're getting shouts out. We're getting smart, savvy YouTubers who know how to have something open on another tab without it echoing. Well done.
I use my mod power to share the link. I'm like, I have the wrench.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
I don't know how you guys can like search for things like while you're paying attention to a panel. I'm just like, my brain can't.
It's the neurodivergent wizardry.
There we go. Yeah.
I have two screens and I am known like Nia to have gazillion tabs open. So
yeah. All right. So we're closing in on the end of the hour, but here's an important closing question. How do you address inequality? How do you champion marginalized authors or communities in general on your channel or in your life, but on your channel so that people can remember after they watch this to go and subscribe?
I don't think I do anything like specific. I mean, I just try to make sure that I'm, as even as possible. Like, we have the podcast. So I always make sure.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. You do it with your podcast.
I mean, we try to have all kinds of people on there so that we have diverse opinions and, experiences on there. But
representation.
Yeah, I don't think I like go out of my way like we have to have a Black author this month. I don't do that, but I just try to be aware of it. I think this readathon helps me.
I'm not a book reviewer channel. My channel is just sharing my writing journey. So probably I default more on my social medias like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Then that's where I share what I'm reading. And sometimes if something is like that I need to talk about it, I may do like a reading vlog. But I'm not gonna review a book per se. I've never been keen to reviewing books. I will rate them and be like, "Oh, this is fun," and leave like a 2 sentence review or something like that because I know that helps authors. But that's not how I read more for enjoyment than anything else. So reviewing feels like it will take the enjoyment out. So I default more on my social medias, like sharing the books that I bought, um, like any book that I really enjoy. Whenever I find any Afro Latine authors and I buy their books, I share them. I try to share a lot of their posts so people can find them and follow them. That's what I do. So probably instead of if that's something that you want to see from me, just follow any of my social medias, not my YouTube channel. That's not what you're gonna get from my YouTube channel.
Did you happen to be in the? I know you were on the Authortubers React with Nia when she
Yes.
referenced the author said reviewer spaces. Did you happen to watch that video from the BookTube reviewers?
Yes. I
Okay,
did watch it
I did,
and
but I definitely didn't comment. I was definitely lurking as an author.
yeah, I watched it and I'm like, this is not my conversation because again, I'm not a book reviewer, so I enjoyed it and I agree with what they said. And I did set it on the Authortubers React, like if like just stay if you're an author, just stay away from it. Like that's a reader conversation. That's not a reader author conversation. Just create your own space for a reader author conversation and don't invade their spaces.
And just to sort of
But that's just me.
justify my channel, which is both a booktube and an authortube space, I kind of picture it as like putting a hat on, right? Like if I have feelings about my books or reviews or things like that, like I paint the face on, like, yes, I'm a reader now. I'm not going to let those feelings interfere with how I'm engaging in the review discussion because it's like not appropriate. So anyways, yeah, sidebar. Good stuff. And thank you for people catching up on the links in the chat. It's wonderful. Yes. Next.
Yeah, all I do on my channel is talk about the books I read. So, that's I try to read as diversely as I can. I'm sure I can definitely be doing more than I have been doing, especially this year when I haven't had as much time to read. But yeah, and I try to just be aware of what I'm reading and try not to read too many old dead white guys, which honestly at this point in my life are more boring and annoying than anything else. So yeah.
And you bring new diverse books into your book tags too. In case you don't know, AuthorTube, BookTube has book tags too. So it's a fun place.
It's a good place. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely. So my channel is more primarily focused on AuthorTube than it is BookTube. My channel tends to view a lot more of my personal journey in terms of my how I'm doing in academia and all that jazz. If you do want to see where I promote people of color in terms of my reading, that would be on my story graph. I do ratings, reviews, and recommendations all over there. I have it set up, I hope, for the most part. I just recently made the switch from Goodreads. Loving it so far. But if you want to follow me there, it's in my link tree, which I believe is in the bio of this live stream. But you can follow me there. And I tend to have ratings out every couple of days or so because I read pretty ferociously. But yeah.
Yay. I'm so glad when people still come up to me and don't know what Storygraph is. I'm like, are you even here?
I had one of my newsletter subscribers reach out to me last week and saying, "Hey, I just left you a review." I was like, "Oh yeah, would you want to share the link?" I mean, you don't have to, but she shared the link. It was on Storygraph.
Yeah.
I was like, really? I was like, I never went on there, even all the times you talked about it. I never went on there, but because she did that review there, I signed in and made a profile and all that.
Nice. That's good. That's good. So I had a few answers for this. I've got a diversity tracker each month, so I'm not super, crazy strict about it, but it keeps me aware of what I'm reading. Diversity across a few different axes. There's BIPOC authors, there's format because we don't want to be snobs. There's like indie authors, so how they're published, and personal one, like doing research so that I'm not getting too far off the wagon in terms of my writing. So my diversity tracker each month, hosting this readathon in February. So that's like a good annual thing. Reaching out to guests with diverse representation for our monthly panels, which kind of is what Shannon was referring to with like getting a diverse crowd, right? Like trying to get representation from points of view that are not your own to provide that for your audience, right? That's part of your intentional process of preparation. Reviewing with positive energy. So I don't do rants. I don't do hate reads. I don't do that kind of thing because I don't think that helps anyone. So just like leave it out. And then the final way is staying curious. So if I've ever been in a space where I've reacted badly or been defensive or had one of these reactions as a white lady that is a turnoff or a, de-powerment move, I try to grow and stay curious about why I had that reaction, reach out to people in terms of how I can be better as an ally. And now I'm losing my voice. And stay open to learning things. And so reading is definitely my favorite way of learning those things. Then I got to remember to put it into action. Okay. What's coming up?
Any one of y'all.
Take your time. Take your time.
Well, we covered a few things in the beginning. So Shannon and I are going to do a live discussion of Morgan Lee's Seed Among the Rocks coming up. We don't have a date yet. Shannon just messaged me about that today because I never responded to her. So that's my bad, but we'll be coming in the next couple of weeks. So we will be announcing that soon. And then I think Shannon and Esther, you also had a book discussion coming up next week, right?
Yeah, it's coming on March 7, 2 p.m. Eastern.
I'm gonna try to read this before then so I can hop in the chat.
The only big thing I have is the podcast and the Authortube Writing Conference. The podcast next episode comes out on the 15th. It's actually with the sisters. I keep thinking EL and Summer, but it's the guys. Shoot, Ben, are you in the chat? You know who? Can't remember the names. The blind mage, Nicole. I remember because their channel is not the same.
Oh.
So Nicole and Lauren. Yes. I was remembering their author names because I did everything with their author names and all the admins and all the stuff like I was just doing. I was like, wait, what's their real names? I don't know those are real names. But yeah, I think Nicole is her real name. Lauren, I think it's not. She chose Adele. That's not her real name.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so we have them coming out on the 15th. That's the last episode for March for this season because we're doing one quarter on, 1 quarter off. Thank you. My words escape me sometimes. I'm getting old. And yes.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I have like book related coming, it's our discussion for Culinary Confessions. I am in the thick of rewrites my holiday romance, so I pretty much don't think, besides the romance writers room, which I have to coordinate, I don't think there's anything that I need to promote or highlight.
What's your next date for that? Do you know?
I need to get with the both the person that wants the critique and one of the guest co-hosts because I think it's gonna be like a sci-fi romance team. So I'm gonna work with the times that people have just to be more flexible. I know It's hard for people who want to watch because there's not a set date, but I just want to be flexible with the people that are going to be on screen. So yeah. I'm just writing, guys. That's it.
Hey guys, AWC, please, if you have the time or funds, we do have a tip jar. It's the one thing I passed on to Margaret to put up there because I don't have anything else to market. I don't have anything else to push
at the moment. But as always, you can read the backlist of ST Houston. So yeah, I popped that in the chat. I have it's a busy week. Of course it's a busy week. This is when I get sick. But I have a productivity sprint tomorrow morning. You're welcome to join from work. If it has to be on the sly, you could do that. We just have fun in the chat and try to do 3 to 4 sprints where we get something done because someone is watching us. Other than that, yeah, you can read or fold laundry or whatever you have to do. But that's my next thing coming up on my channel. Aphrodite, it's in the chat. I put it as Shannon on Ko-fi. Hope that helps. And let's see. But then comes to the productivity sprints too. It's fun because she writes. I think that is everything. Did I miss something that you guys looked up that you wanted to get out to the world?
Do you have anything to promote, Ari?
Well, I guess I could just promote myself. I don't really have anything big coming up. I'm actually, after tomorrow's final exam, I'm actually taking off on a backpacking trip for spring break. So this is counting as my video for the week. But if you do want to subscribe to me on YouTube, I try to post every other week to every week, depending on how busy my schedule is. I think my next video coming up, I've actually done some recording for it, is going to be a reading vlog. So keep an eye out for that in the week of like the March 15th area, ? But yeah, that's all I've got for now.
Nice.
Good luck on your exam.
I had 2 submissions come in, so we got to all talk about our new favorites and backlist favorites. Just Eva mentioned Sharon M. Draper, who is a middle grade YA author that is probably pretty famous, who she thinks of every time these questions come up since I read her last year. Very nicely done. And Emma put in Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. Also duly famous, but justifiably so. I read one of the books in the series and loved it as well. So thank you for putting those answers in. And I was just going to sew this up by saying thank you so much for participating, you guys. I know people in the chat did as well. They just weren't available for the panel. So I appreciate everyone who made an effort to look at the spreadsheet and read a book and try something new, because you make it so much more fun when you have people to read with and do live chats with and etc. Have fun chats with. So thank you all so much for being here on screen and in the chat. And if you're here watching the replay, leave a comment with your answers to the questions. I answer everyone. So I do appreciate that. And all the links to these lovely people's channels are in the description. And I'll get the book links very soon. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Good to talk with you
everyone.
all.